In this video, we're going to show you how to install pads and rotors on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located in the front side of your vehicle. Using your 19mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. Once you have the lug nuts removed, grab the wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Now at this point here, we went ahead and we turned our key to the on position. That's going to allow us to go ahead and turn our steering system one way or the other. Now this is a little bit tight right now. What I'm going to do is go to the passenger side wheel, and we want to access the bolts on the back side of the caliper and the caliper bracket. So grab that passenger side wheel, give that a good old twist, and that's going to give us access to those back bolts. To remove our caliper here, there are two 17mm bolts, one on the top, one on the bottom. Let's loosen and remove those. And use our pry bar here, grab that caliper and slide this out. We're going to work this out of the caliper bracket. At this point, we're going to grab our hanging hook here because we want to go ahead and remove this, and we're going to hang it off of our coil spring over here, up and out of the way. Now in doing so, you want to be careful not to damage the brake line. Go ahead and remove your brake pads. Now I'm not going to pry on the pad itself. I'm just going to go on the outer edge. Slide those out and set those aside. We want to remove our caliper bracket next. Now there are two 18mm bolts holding this here. Now when we remove these two bolts and the caliper bracket comes off, the rotor will be free floating. Be careful not to let this fall or drop on your foot or anything like that. We're going to use an 18mm socket and our breaker bar. Next, we're going to remove our rotor. Sometimes there's a little bit of rust holding that in place. Just give it a few bonks and go ahead and set that aside. We want to go ahead and prep our caliper bracket right here for our new pads. We want to go ahead and pop off our shims first. We're just going to use a little pry tool, flathead screwdriver, something basic like that. Pop these off. There's going to be 4 of them, or at least there should be 4 of them. Now you have your 2 slider pins right here. You want to make sure that these are mobile, spinning around. If they're not, that means that we may have a damaged boot. Water has gotten in and it has rusted. At that point there, you want to go ahead and tackle that by applying some heat and working this out. Now in our case here, we can pull these in and out. So we're going to peel back this rubber boot, grab the pin, slide it out. I'm going to do the same for the other pin here. Grab that, slide it out. Our next step, I want to grab that rubber boot and just kind of work that out. I'm just going to pop that out, do an overall inspection, rotate it around, look for any tears abnormal wear. That boot is in good condition. Do the same for over here. Now you want to grab this nice and low. Don't grab it out here and pull it because you can tear the boot. Grab it down gently, rock that around, pop it out, inspect. Our boot is in great condition. Now at this point here, we're going to go right to our slider pins here. Focus on that. Grab some solvent, spray solvent, spray it down, wipe them off. Clean those right up. And you want to do an inspection on the slider pins, make sure there's no rust or any major debris, anything like that that would cause resistance of this pin operating properly. Now we are going to go ahead and run the heads of these here through our wire wheel machine just to clean up any debris on the outside, make these last a bit longer. I'm going to repeat for the other pin. Now if you don't have a wire wheel machine, you can go ahead and use a wire brush. Something like this here, and just clean it like so. And just continue that process until you feel comfortable with the edge that's nice and clean. Now I want to focus on the pin slide ports here. I want to spray some solvent in here. Make sure that you're wearing safety glasses when doing this. You don't want to have that spray come back and get you in the face. Spray a little bit of solvent, and next we're going to use a bore brush, just a bristle brush on our drill. I want to go in and clean out any debris, old grease or anything that's in there. Repeat for the other port. Go ahead and grab your solvent, spray it out, pretty much flush it. Drain that out using gravity a little bit. And go ahead and wipe out the front port section with your finger and a rag or towel or whatever you got. All right, so these ports are clean and ready to go. Grab your bristle brush. Next step is to focus on where the sliders go, and we want to clean this up. Now ours is a bit rusty, so it's going to take a little bit of effort to do so. What we're trying to do is make sure that we don't have any scaly rust built up in here where our shims are going to go, or our sliders. Run your finger in there, check for any debris. Now if you have excess rust, you can go ahead and use a metal file, something flat, and just clean that up in there to get rid of that debris. In most cases, you'll be able to go ahead and just use your bristle brush and go to town on that. Give it a spray with some solvent. Wipe it out, inspect it. Ours is in good shape. We're going to flip it. Do the same to the other side. You want to pay attention to the sliders, okay? These are going to go in a specific way. One side has a little loop on, or half a loop. The other side has a little spring tab on it. And then you have your spring-loaded clip to keep the pads locked into place. And then you have your U-shaped clamp that goes onto the bracket right here. If you grab the wrong one, it just isn't going to line up properly. So you're going to have to go through these, make sure you test fit everything, and make sure you have the correct ones in the correct position. I'm going to add a little bit of grease to these spots here. Doesn't have to be giant globs of it. We're just putting a little bit on here, smear it around, wipe off the excess. Take your slider, line that up, and push that down and on. Make sure this is seated inside here. Take the other one, line that up, and do the same. Once you're satisfied with the overall position here, go ahead and flip this. I'm going to do the same to this side here. The key thing you want to pay attention to here is make sure that the slider is flush inside here. There's a little bit of a gap here, not that big of an issue. You want to make sure that this is clipped onto it, but key is make sure this is flat on both sides as well as the other side as well. If not, you're going to have a tough time fitting your brake shoes into this here nice and flush without causing a lot of resistance. Once these clips are installed, you can grab your boots. Just do a quick wipe down. Before we install those, we're going to put a little bit of grease inside our tubes here. We don't want to cake it up. We just want to put a little bit in there. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Grab your boot, line that up, push that into place. And do the same for the other side. And once you have your boots installed, grab your slider pins, and we're going to put some grease on there. This is a critical part. Do not overload it with grease. You want a thin coating on it, not globs of grease. Take the pin, slide it in, rotate it as you're going in. That's going to move some of that grease around. And then push that in. Spin it around, make sure it's spinning nice and easy. And repeat for the other pin. Seat it, spin it, and this bracket is ready for installation. Install the brake rotor, and we're going to spin one lug nut on, and this is going to hold this to the face of the wheel hub. I'm going to line our bracket up here. I'm going to put some anti-seize compound on the threads of the bolt. Go ahead and line up that bracket, get it started a few threads. Once you have that one started, go ahead and repeat for the other bolts. Once you have these started, let's go ahead and snug those down. Go ahead and snug these down using your 18mm socket. Go ahead and torque down your caliper bolts to 70 foot-pounds. Install the brake pads. Put these tabs into the sliders there. Repeat for the inboard pad. I'm going to remove our caliper from our support here. I'm going to bring this over. And we're going to set up our tool here so we can go ahead and push these pistons back into the caliper. And we're going to hold pressure on this just a little bit. And what we're going to do next is we're going to open up our bleeder screw. So when we go to push these pistons in, instead of forcing fluid back up and into the system, we're just going to let this bleed out through here. Use your 10mm with your ratchet. Now you want to have a catch can or a bucket underneath. See the fluid coming out now. And go ahead and compress this. Now once those pistons are completely pressed in, go ahead and snug down the bleeder screw. Wipe that down and remove the tool. Now with the tool removed, we can go ahead and line this up. Bring your slider pins over, push those in, slide this over and into place. You can see that our slider pins here, they're flat on two sides and has rounded edges on the other. Want the flat edge up against our caliper. If it's over the other way, it won't line up to get that bolt in. So if you spin that around, it'll allow that caliper to move in further and get that bolt started immediately. I'm gonna do the same on the bottom. Let's go ahead and snug those down. Torque down the upper bolt to 25 foot-pounds. Do the same for the lower. Remove the securing lug nut here. And once you remove this lug nut, you want to hop into the vehicle. You want to go ahead and pump up the brakes. The pedal initially is going to be soft and spongy, and once you pump it up, the fluid is going to come through, fill everything properly, and you should have a good firm pedal. Now, if you don't have a firm pedal, you want to go ahead and continue to a brake bleeding process. After you've pumped up the brake pedal and everything feels good, go ahead and hop up underneath the hood and check your brake fluid. I'm going to locate the master cylinder reservoir here underneath the hood on the driver's side of the firewall. I'm going to open up our cap. You can see that the rubber portion has pushed out. You just want to work that in so it's recessed in like so. You want to pay attention to the max level right here. There's a little arrow pointing up and it says max. You can see the fluid through here, and ours is just a tad bit low because we did just push some fluid out through the caliper. Grab the proper recommended brake fluid. Add that just till it comes to the top of the max line. Install the cap. Take your wheel, bring it up, set it into place. And we're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand first. Once we have all the lug nuts on, let's go ahead and snug them down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.